May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer.
Amen.
Please be seated. So the weather news for the past week has been pretty tough and continued to warn against bands of storms, severe storms and floods, drought, ruined crops, and wildfires. And these urgent weather effects quickly become threats to our energy supply, as well as to our economic, our educational, political, and public health. As we seek to continue the way of life, keep our traditions, and even follow our religion. As an old natural gas lawyer, I cringed this week when I heard on BBC World News that they were flaring gas at a production plant, an LNG production plant, up in the northern part of Russia, on the northwest. Flaring means burning off, and it's often done when there are excess supplies because they can't get into market. And you stand the risk in oil production, gas production, if you shut in the well, you lose production over time. The decline curve steepens. They're flaring it because it's not going into Europe. And that's increasing energy prices in Europe by 10 times right this minute, expected to be higher by then. And the flaring, which is being done at Arctic latitudes, is also causing pieces of dark soot to land on polar ice caps, which attracts the sunlight, grows heat, and causes the ice caps to melt more quickly. And even in New England's more temperate weather, which I have to say Jerry and I have grown to love after a lifetime in the South's heat, we've had some objectively hot days. It may come as a shock to hear that Rhode Island is the first state in the lower 48 whose average temperature rise has already exceeded 2 degrees Celsius. That's 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And just this last week, the United States Department of Agriculture declared a drought emergency in all of Rhode Island. Neither science, nor religion, nor politics, nor economics, nor history, nor tradition, nor civilization can ignore or deny climate change. So what do we do now? Where do we find our hope? I'd be the first person to say it's really hard to listen to prophets. They're always talking about gloom and doom and the consequences of our failure to listen. It always sounds like the message is for someone else, somewhere else, sometime else. It's easy to say the message is not for me, not here, not now. And a natural response is to start listing off things we're doing right. We try hard every day. We work hard. We love our families. We keep the great commandments. But can we find hope in Jeremiah's message of gloom? In the past, I found Jeremiah among the most difficult prophets to connect with and to learn from. He speaks into a time and a reality that, as they say in 12-step programs, has hit rock bottom. In Jeremiah's world, communities are shattered, cherished institutions in society, including temple worship, are no longer available or relevant in exile, and the whole culture's understanding of life has been upended. These are really hard ideas for us to grapple with in our modern lives, founded on the Constitution, the rule of law, science, technology, and relative comfort and security. But do these hard, uncomfortable ideas, does this rocky bottom actually give us the solid footing we need to make the changes we need to make in our lives? To say it another way, is it possible that Jeremiah is a prophet of hope? Man, that's a harsh word. But some hope in these times. Maybe. Several chapters further on from this morning's reading, Jeremiah imagines creation returning to primeval chaos. And given our torn early 21st century social and environmental crises, from gun violence to oppressive global economic policies to systemic racism, do Jeremiah's urgent warnings resonate with us more now than they have in the past? The conclusion of today's reading seems to speak to us directly from the climate headlines. My people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living water, and they have dug out cisterns for themselves, cracked cisterns that can hold no water. So can we hear the prophet Jeremiah as a hopeful voice? As Louis Stolman and Hyun Chul Paul Kim wrote in You Are My People, Jeremiah speaks to the Israelites in their rock bottom, in exile, in war, with meaning and civility crumbling, and trusted social systems and institutions no longer available. Jeremiah both called out what he saw and didn't provide any easy answers. He recognized the painful realities of exile and didn't say that if people just followed some easy formula, that they could be back to business as usual in no time. And Jeremiah's voice guide us to the needed change in our time when our trusted ways don't seem to work anymore? Can we find hope in Jeremiah's observation that moving forward sometimes involves letting go of the old world if we really cannot keep living the way we always have done? Can a willingness to try new things come from the humility of failure? Can we make genuine community right here, right now, doing what we're doing and not longing to return to a past we remember as idyllic? Can we find hope in worship, the embodiment, recitation, and practice of our faith that helps us to become what we pray, one body in communion? Jeremiah speaks into our world with hope right now, in that if we could only hear him and set our foot down on that solid rock. So how do we apply Jeremiah's harsh hope to the climate crisis? Because I feel overwhelmed. Like the task is too big, and like we read from Jeremiah's prophecy last week, I'm only just me. What can I do to make a difference? After all we can do is all we can do. And I think the only question we can ask is, are we all doing all we can do? Jeremiah knows that sometimes there's suffering involved. Avoiding single-use plastics isn't easy when alternatives are less convenient, more expensive, and hard to find. And we have to be ready to let go of our old ways when they're harmful, even if we liked the way things used to be and it was very good. Jeremiah's harsh hope comes out of acknowledging our vulnerability, building our community, and working together. And these are habits and skills we nurture at Emmanuel. I shared the news in Constant Contact this week that the Reverend Canon Sarah Snyder will be joining us for an important conversation on habits of reconciliation on Monday, October 3rd, 2022. Until last year, Sarah was the Archbishop of Canterbury's special advisor for reconciliation programs and resources, and she created the Lambeth Conference, the Simple Habits of Engagement. We talked about them here before. Be present, be curious, reimagine. And she created these habits and these programs from her 30 years or more experience in ecumenical and interfaith conversations across cultures. Some of you may wonder where and how and why reconciliation fits in your life. What are we reconciling? What am I reconciling? Where do I or we begin, and to what end? You may be asking yourself these questions. And they're great questions. Important change always comes with wonder. Ken and Sarah's life's work in faith-based interactions for difference spans 30 years and over the globe, including some of the world's most entrenched conflicts. She encourages us to form habits in the way we encounter other people, ideas, perspectives, cultures, ways of life that are different from what we've always known. We need these habits now. Hospitality, curiosity, presence, imagination, lament. We need these habits now to respond to Jeremiah's reality-based good news. These habits are really useful when we encounter different perspectives in our country, in our communities, in our families, and even in ourselves and in our pasts. Because it's hard for us to see the way we've always done things as other than normative of how things should always be. Our perspective on the environment is the very air we breathe. It's often said to describe any kind of perspective. How do you explain water to a fish? Jesus' gospel message today about the Grand Society dinner party invites us to re-examine where we think we stand among others in the world, opening up the idea of new systems and new relationships. Where do I or we begin, and to what end with reconciliation? We begin first with a solid footing in humility, remaining alert to the ever-present possibility that we're entertaining angels without knowing.